use certain words to him whenever he goes out into the world, goes to school, he will hear those terms, and then somebody can manipulate, pressure, or mislead or misinform him. So we have to know, open our children to everything that is out there with the proper guidance so that they will know and be informed so that they can make good decisions. So it's not about hiding away from things. If they ask you a question you don't know, ask somebody the answer. You understand? It's not about sheltering them too much, because if you don't give them, you
because I don't
understand?
believe in sheltering, because I think when you shelter your child, it makes it worse.
Yes.
I don't shelter, but when I say certain words I don't use, I should say derogatory terms.
But remember, those words are being used outside, so you have to find that balance. You understand? You definitely have to figure out how to use that balance, because he'll pick up words at school.
He's gonna hear and he's gonna come home and ask, So
right,
I'm
and then you
prepared to have
guide
that
him
conversation.
through that.
Yes. So
Very
I'm making myself prepared for that. It's just that I don't use it in the home.
Not
I don't
in the
use
home,
it.
because
His
you have to
mom
model.
don't use it. So yes. So that's what I should have said. When I said certain words I don't use, I should say in the home, because I know at school he's gonna have that influence for sure. Because influence is a big thing. I went to high school. I went to school, so I know influence. It's a big thing. So you just have to
set
be
the
ready to have
foundation
this
at
conversation
home.
and set the foundation. So that's what I'm trying to do. Yes.
Very good. And remember, in this forum or any forum that time, there's no judgment, because in the moment, that's the best decision that you could make. So it's just a discussion. So I don't want anybody to, feel away. If you feel away, say it. If you don't agree, say it, because this is what we need. More communication, and open and honest communication, where you understand where I'm at and I understand where you're at, and we agree to disagree. And that's what is necessary in our community now, in our communities now. Is it okay for men to cry? Most studies and researchers believe that tears are a natural way for our bodies to relieve emotional pain. I know that sometimes, I don't know if anybody else does it. When I am stressed, especially when it comes down to certain things that relates to family. When my sister had a relapse, you don't cry. We don't, even women, myself, I didn't cry in the open like where my husband or my son is. My tears are shed in the shower, and that's where you get that relief. You just let it out in the shower, because it's a safe space to cry. Men on a whole don't want to cry, or are afraid to cry, because they think it is weak. But if you are not made to cry, then I'm sure God would not put tear ducts in your eyes. So once you have a tear duct and it is working properly, and there's emotional pain, especially emotional pain, then you're going to cry. So some of the questions that the men ask themselves, and these are some of the ones that are more important, because I asked some men where I'm at now, and they're thinking that the level of income and how you maintain and sustain your family and the standard of living, because a true man prides himself on the fact that he's able to, and when I say true, I mean real man now, not in the Jamaican parlance where a man just have children and not responsible and not working and not taking care. When I say real men, that's what I mean. You're thinking about your income, you're thinking about how you're going to maintain your family, how you're going to maintain a healthy standard of living. And remember, I'm not talking about the brand name best of best. I'm talking about as far as your resources can provide. Does the woman in your life feel like she's doing it alone? Are you the leader in your home? Are you the leader in your community that is setting the example, so that a woman who should be submissive to the man in the home, does she feel like you are man enough to take care of her? Right? Because the Bible does speak to that. In terms of our religion, we should submit to our husbands. But I'm here to say that if my husband is doing something wrong, that is the reason why I am his support. So I said to him, I give him another perspective so that he can make a decision to say, oh, well, maybe I could look at it another way. So it's not for the man to say, oh, this is my way or no way. It is something that leading a woman or leading your family in the right direction that is going to benefit everybody, and not to meet a selfish need. Fair enough?
Fair enough, yes.
Fair enough. All right. So we do know that our men are important to us. The fathers or partners or sons or brothers or uncles or friends, every man that is important, because without men, there's no generation, there's no leadership, there's no strength. I mean, physical strength, emotional strength, everything about you as a man matters to us. Your mental health, and it's important for you to recognize that mental, the first 3 letters says men. Very important. So you need to have a conversation about your own mental health. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's nothing to worry about, to say, oh, I'm crazy, cuckoo, crazy. It's just that you need to maintain as you would maintain your car, right? Good mental health is as important as oxygen. Because if you're out of your mind, I would prefer, and any other issues that I could possibly have, I don't want to be not in control of my mind. To be like, you can see somebody walking on the street and you know that they're not mentally well and they're doing things that they would not normally do. I would not want that for me. And I have a lot of insight as to what it means to not be mentally well. As I spoke about my sister, she's my younger sister, and you can see some of the things that she does when she's not mentally well. So it's very important that we need our mental health to survive. There are different reasons why men are less likely to speak about their mental health and their mental health problems. I'm going to look at some of the reasons. First reason is that admitting it makes them weak. They think that if they tell somebody that, boy, I'm having a challenge, they think that they're weak. They don't want to go to the pharmacy to pick up antidepressants because they're afraid that they will be judged. And I guess that works for women as well. They don't want to go to a therapist because they don't want to share with a stranger. They don't want, if they don't want to talk about it, it can be tough for their friends and family members to know if something is wrong. Now, as a therapist, I've had the experience where I deal with child diversion committee, child diversion, and you have teenagers whose fathers are in the home. And when you call them, they say, counting a foolishness, and I don't have nothing to say. But when they come, I have a blue chair in my office, and they sit in that blue chair. I think it has some kind of spiritual kind of get it out of you. And they sit in the chair and they're talking, and they say, oh, the hour is up. And they say, time gone already? How you get me to talk so much? Because men have to feel comfortable enough and safe enough to recognize, oh, it's okay for me to express myself. A lot of times the fathers who come, they sit in the chair and I just ask 1 or 2 questions and they just keep going. I'm looking and I'm laughing in my head and I say, oh, this man said he didn't want to talk. I caught in his foolishness. And at the end of it, they say, what did you do? I said, I didn't do anything. I just ask you a question. You feel comfortable enough to express and to share. Even in relationships, men have a measuring stick with your wives or your significant other. You shouldn't be so afraid to share your most intimate fears, your most intimate thoughts with somebody who you pledge to stay with the rest of your life, because that is the person, your helpmate. So I suspect too that that's one of the reasons why men will go outside of marriage, outside of relationships, because they think that they're measured and they feel less than and they feel weak and they don't feel strong. So they go outside, which is something it's a whole nother session. But, being able to speak and to express yourself in that space, that's what men need. So to be comfortable. Men don't always show the signs we often associate with depression, like sadness and hopelessness. They want to be macho, they want to be tough. Sometimes they get very angry, they get very aggressive. Sometimes they are physical in terms of how they smash and break things, because they don't want to show the softer side of themselves. So it makes it easier for us as women, and sometimes even a therapist or a doctor, to miss the signs that would tell her that something is wrong. They don't cry, they don't complain, they don't murmur, they're not miserable, they just have on this tough appearance, that they paste on a mask on their faces, and that's what they use. So as a result, a lot of men miss out on the treatment that they need to make them feel better. So today we're going to be normalizing men's mental health. The issues cannot be willed away. It's not like you're going to say, okay, when I wake up tomorrow, all of these things are gone. when I wake up next week, everything will be fine. You have to do the work because you still have to have faith, but faith without work is dead. And we know that as Christians that you have to put in the extra energy. Some people resort to substances and substance use, marijuana and alcohol. They get the temporary break, but then they break otherwise because they become dependent on a substance. It inhibits your natural way of functioning, and then you end up with another issue. So we have to be very careful how we stigmatize and ostracize. We want it to be a normal thing for men to say, oh, I'm having a problem, I'm sad today, or I'm unhappy today, or I feel frustrated, or I feel angry. You know, any of those emotions, it's easy for a man to say it because we know the words, but we are afraid of saying it. So it's a serious health condition that affects men's daily lives, including the way he eats, he sleeps, he feels, and he thinks. Sometimes you can check by the mental issues, if the sleep pattern has changed, if the eating pattern has changed, if how they express themselves, if they're withdrawing, if there are any significant changes, you can recognize that something is off. It also affects the ability to work, to go to school, to maintain relationships with family and friends. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. He's very antagonistic, very miserable, very grumpy, very disrespectful, because our men, when they're having challenges, instead of taking the high road and being nice like women can pretend to be nice, men become very aggressive and anti-social in whoever they're going to engage with. Mental health does not mean that you're weak. It can affect the man regardless of his age, race, or his ethnicity. So it's not typical of Jamaican men or Black men. It's men in general. I guess that's part of who you are and how you're made up. Now, according to the National Institute of Mental Health, it can be a combination of issues, how you develop mental issues. For starters, as I said before, it could be genes. It could be there's a history of mental health, and it's more likely to develop in those who don't have genetic issues. Environmental stress can be a trigger for depression or mental issues too. Financial problems. A lot of men now are going through a financial drought, especially with COVID and everybody stopped working and things have changed at work. Some people are laid off. A lot of those issues are happening now, and we're still living with the residual consequences of COVID. As much as it's probably a little less now, it still happens. Loss of a loved one. When people die, men tend not to want to show their emotions, especially when somebody dies. When a mother dies, a grandmother dies, and when a mother or grandmother dies, it's not that they love them any more than the man that would have died, a grandfather or father. It's the intensity of the relationship that they shared. And a lot of men, instead of grieving properly, they resort to drinking, or they resort to some kind of behavior or display of behavior that is not necessarily healthy for them. Work problems, difficult relationships, any change in life. Some men, when they get to that stage where they get into the midlife stage of their development, they start to think that they can't have an erection, or they can't perform sexually anymore, or they start to lose that erection and they're not able to perform. That is a big issue for men. And what they have to recognize, what men need to recognize, is this is a part of the growth and development that you're going to go through. At some point in time, you have to start preparing yourself that this is possible, this is likely to happen. And two, the women have to be sensitive enough and sympathetic enough to recognize that, okay, we're going to go through these changes, and we have to work together to appreciate these changes and find other ways and means of, living. Understand? So any stressful relationship, any stressful situation can develop into mental health issues. Now, remember when we started, we talk about those issues that are going to happen. They are going to happen, but how we deal with them, that is what makes a big difference. Sometimes for me, and I have to tell you this, when my mother died in September, I had a total proper just shut down. I didn't want to do anything. I took time off from work. I stopped doing certain things, and it's a dark place that is so comforting to be in that space. people telling you, you have to get up, you have to do this, you have to change, you have to bathe, you have to eat. And it's in a space where it gets very comfortable. Because I can speak from experience, it's a very comfortable space to sit in that pity party and just don't do anything. Once, and as a practitioner, I knew what I was doing. I felt what I was doing, but I didn't have the will to do it. And even though I have those relapses, I go back and I say, oh, you have to get up, you have to start living again, you have to do this. Your mind knows that people will die. And even when you're prepared that somebody's going to die, you're going to lose a relationship, or there's a significant change in a relationship or a work situation, it still takes some time for you to wrap your head around it. But then you have to always remember that this too will pass, and this is just a phase that you're going through. If you go through the phase and you go through it properly, and you're not recycling that phase, then it's healthy for you to go through those phases, because you're going to feel, you're going to have the emotions, and it's good to take a, you know, when the Psalm speaks about, yea, do I walk through the valley, that valley is very significant, especially when you're going through a rough spot. It's below, it's low. Let's look at it as having trees overhead and the shelter. You stay in that valley for a minute to rest, to recoup, to think about yourself as, okay, where am I now? What do I need? And it speaks about the rod and the staff. The rod is there to protect you as well, to help you to get up if you need to get up. So when I look at the Psalm 23, I get so many different lessons from that, and help you to pull yourself out of your situation. Especially, I know that it feels good to be there. You don't want to hear anything from anybody. You get to the point where you're almost angry if somebody says to you, you need to move, you know? So it's very important that if you have a Christian or religious background, that you hold fast to something that keeps you anchored in those moments. All right. Environmental stress can trigger mental issues too, or depression. This financial problems, loss of a loved one, we spoke about that. And it can occur when men have serious medical conditions like diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and particular prostate cancer, or Caribbean men do not want to go and get their prostates checked, or the digital test. People are afraid of doing the digital test. It's one of the most accurate tests. The homophobic part of who we are as men, you have to get that out of your head, because it's one of those cancers that if it is caught early, you can get full recovery, full remission from it. My father died from prostate cancer, and I think Daddy knew that something was wrong long before everybody else. The signs, one of the signs was pain when urinating, and when the urine flow it's less than what it used to be. If you're feeling any kind of pain, you bear the pain, you do everything. And every time you say, go to the doctor. My father actually went to one doctor and then just said, foolishness, nothing like that. Went to another doctor, same thing. And he did not do anything. He didn't say anything to anybody. And then when it got really, really bad, that's when we realized, and he started urinating blood now, that we realized, oh, something is wrong. And then by then it was too late. So those are some of the things that men do. They hide. If it's not a broken wrist where you can physically see that something is wrong, if they have a tummy ache, if they have a headache, they hide it. Anything that is going on, especially with that groin area, they don't want to talk about it because it affects their manhood. And sorry, but you better you have a man there than have no man at all. So when it comes down to illnesses or Caribbean men, we women have to push them to get to the doctor, push them to get medication. You're saying something, Janine?
That's so true. They never want to go to the doctor. They think somebody's talking foolishness.
Exactly. And then, you know, after a while, it becomes too late.
Yeah.
So some of the things that you look for when you know that a man is having mental issues, and when I say mental, it's not that he's crazy, cuckoo crazy. It's just that he's not well in terms of how he's thinking and how he's feeling and how he's expressing himself. So it's anger and irritability and aggressiveness. Men are very good at that. They cuss bad words, they kick the dog, they thump doors, they do, you know, break stuff. Noticeable changes in mood and energy level, appetite, they don't want to eat, or they're eating too much. So it's on the spectrum. If they're eating too much, they're eating too much of the wrong thing. If they're not eating at all, so we have to be careful of those signs. So it's the extremes that you're looking for. Difficulty sleeping or sleeping too much. Sometimes that is a tell. When they're not sleeping enough or they're restless in their sleep, something is off, something is wrong. Difficulty concentrating, feeling rest on edge, they can't remember stuff, they're forgetting things that they do routine. Sometimes you have increased worry or feeling of stress. Some men express this stress by, well, they're cursing at you, or they're cursing the nitpick, they find every little thing to quarrel about except the real issue that is their problem. Misuse and abuse of alcohol. Say again, Duke?
Oh no, I was saying beating around the bush. They don't want to address
and they beat the bush and they beat the bush and then they're not getting to the issue.
It's so funny.
Misuse of alcohol. Right. Misuse of alcohol, our men are very good at that. The closest rum bar, you have more rum bars than you have any other organization or institution. Every street that you go on, you can find a rum bar. It's easy to access. Where it comes down to drugs too, because you have those drugs like the marijuana and the cocaine that give you that temporary break from reality. That's what a lot of men need, that temporary break. But when the high passes, especially with the marijuana, because it's not as addictive, it's a gateway drug. They use it, they feel high, they forget about everything else. But when they come from that high, reality hits them and they keep going back. And that's when you have substance use and misuse, trying to get away from the reality of what is happening, as against fixing what is fixable. And sometimes you can't fix it, you just have to accept it for what it is. Sadness or hopelessness. I've seen sadness and hopelessness when a child is involved. If the child has to be admitted in a hospital, there's nothing a father can do. And he just sits there. Sometimes he gets angry, he's never going to cry. Sometimes he quarrels with the nurse, the type of treatment, he quarrels with the institution, quarrels with everything else, except saying that I feel helpless, I feel hopeless, I can't do anything to help. Those are some of the things that you look for. And of course, the suicidal thoughts. Men tend to want to get out of their situations. They wear a mask and everything seems fine. Case in point, I think his name is Twix. That entertainer.
Twitch.
Stephen Twitch.
Twitch, right. Yes. He was on Helen, and every TikTok that he put forward, he's smiling, he's dancing, he's happy. The mask is on his face, and men wear masks very well because you can't see what is happening. They just put on the mask and they pretend like everything is fine. But at the end, he would have completed the suicide. You have men who would have, thought about it and had plans about it and carried it out. So when we talk about suicide, we talk about successful suicide, but we miss the point that some men constantly think about how to get out of it. Constantly think about, if I weren't here, I don't feel my purpose anymore. I don't feel that I'm important. I don't know what my value is. And that's when they end up committing suicide, especially if they're, like, let's say there's a significant change in the financial situation. Men don't think that, I can restart and I can do something else. Yes. Especially if you see yourself only in that space. You can't see another option outside of where you are, where you're comfortable, then you're going to have a problem.
With Twitch, that was I open up for many people, because just to touch on the suicide, nobody really saw that coming. As you said, he does all these videos, and he's someone that I followed before he even got to Ellen, because I knew of him way before, when he just started dancing back home where he came from, and I followed him all the way to So You Think You Can Dance, before Helen found him and all that. So, and he was always a happy person.
On the outside.
On the outside, yes. On the outside.
He had just celebrated an anniversary.
And his anniversary was 3 days before he
Christmas is coming up. but there's something triggered him, and that's a choice that he made, you know, and that's the reality of the situation that we live in. So a lot of, you know, some of the suicides that you see, like for the gentleman that did Mrs. Doubtfire,
Robin Williams.
yes, you'd think that he's an entertainer and he has everything for, you know, everything that he needs. So you would expect that he's going to commit suicide, but it does happen. And on the other side of suicide, you have the murder suicide, where a man decides that, okay, I can't provide for my family anymore. I'm going to off everybody and then do myself. And it's typical in like countries like United States, where you have men just kill the entire family, children, everybody, mother, wife, everybody, and then he kills himself. So it must take a man to a level where he feels so helpless and hopeless and doesn't think about what is possible for him to do something like that.
Dr. Hilton, Brother Brown had his hands up.
Dr. Hilton, if I may,
Yes.
you know, from my experience, what I have noticed on my side of the fence here in terms of profession is that a lot of these men who actually commit suicide, I know of, there are persons who people normally go to for advice. You know, persons who have a career and all that. You know, I find out that these persons are not likely to even open the person so the person know that they're actually going through a phase. And the next thing we know, we're all surprised and say, this person where I normally call they have a problem.
Yeah.
Who comes to the counselor?
Right. And then you hear the term physician heal thyself.
Yes.
So for us as practitioners, I have a counselor that I talk to, because then everybody comes to you, and and that's what they call counter transference. If everybody comes to you and you take on everybody's issue, if you're not trained, then it becomes an issue for you and you're not able to take care of yourself. So you always have to do self-care first. It's like when you're on the plane, they tell you if there's an issue and they have to the oxygen
mask
down, you have to put on the mask on yourself first, then you can help somebody else. But we seem to miss that. And sometimes, you know, you somebody who commits suicide, it's about people go to them all the time. They always have good advice. They always are able to help. But in that sense, you know what to tell somebody else, but you don't know how to heal yourself, because you need help. It's just like each one needs one. So you have to lean on somebody else to get that help that you need. And once you recognize that you need help, then you have to seek the help, you know? And sometimes it's just people just feeling shame that they're having challenges and they don't know how, and they're helping others. But we have to remember that we're human first. That's the thing. We always have to remember that we're human first, and we have our emotions and we have to deal with them as they come and not feel like we're superhuman. If you're having a lot of headaches, some people have headaches in the front of the forehead, back of the they feel pain in the shoulders, in the neck. People manifest pain in different areas. You have to know what your stress area is. And once you start to feel those, then it means that you have to do something about it. Without any issues with digestion or anything, once you get headaches or pain, some people get cramps in the arms, you feel like you're going to have, people have panic attacks too. That's something that is very prevalent now. Obsessive thinking or compulsive behavior, those are some of the things that you look for. Thoughts or behaviors that interfere with work, family, or social life. You start to tell lies, you start to steal, especially if it is a financial situation. You start doing things at work that you wouldn't normally do. So if you're behind on the rent, instead of, you know, finding another way or speaking about it to somebody or getting a loan, you start to steal from from whatever funds you have. You wonder why people would take money from an institution, and you can trace it. For banking, for example, people are in the banks that they live a life of the Joneses, and you live above your means, so you have to meet the needs so that you don't fall short of your friends. So you have to be very careful of the friends that you have and the influence that they have over you. Because if they are true friends, then you know that you don't compete. You just be the best of who you are. So you won't have to steal, and you won't have to lie, and you won't have to do all the negative things that interfere with the general running of the home or your life. All right. Some people, everything that happens, woe is me, they're at me, everybody coming for me, everybody gunning for me. So you start to introspect, you start to become so self-absorbed that everything and anything that goes wrong at the office, somebody's after you, somebody's out to get you. Those are some of the negative warning signs that you have to pay attention to. What can you do? One of the first things is to accept and recognize that something is wrong. Sometimes you're so blinded by it. If somebody keeps telling you, your loved one, your wife, your significant other, your children sometimes can tell you that you have changed or you're changing. Your co-workers can tell you, you have to get a proper diagnosis. And with that, treatment will help. Or in Jamaica, in our society, going to a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or a doctor, it tells that you're mad or something is wrong with you. Something that is negative. In the United States and other European cultures, going to a therapist is like nothing. They say, oh, I'm going to my therapist and it's nothing, because they understand the value of freedom of expression, getting somebody to understand who you are, to help you through your journey. So it is normalized in developed countries, and I'm hoping that we get to that point. Sometimes it is because of funding, but you can get counseling other places than to go to a very expensive clinician. Without mental health issues, you can lead to such consequences as self-medicating with drugs, alcohol, or worse, suicide. So without getting proper diagnosis, you will want to medicate. Some people will take the sleep aids. Some people will want to take, if you have a pain in the back of your neck and it is constant, some people have a bump or bulge of the muscle, they take muscle relaxants, and they don't find the source and the reason why they're having these issues. And it might just be something that is bothering them, something that they're not dealing with. And then you medicate, and with every medication that you take, there's a side effect. We know that, right?
Yes.
Unless you're going to go natural. And sometimes when you go natural, because it is not in the concentrated forms, then you don't get that relief as much. All right, I still have a ways to go. Suicide is one of the leading causes of death in the United States, and it is slowly growing in our country as well. Men die by rates of suicide 4 times higher than women. And that's a sad fact, because women are more expressive. They are more willing to talk to their girlfriends. They go to the hairdresser, they go to the nail tech, and then they start their business. They love to sit and talk and, get it out. Men, on the other hand, unless you have a good brethren who you can sit down and talk to, you don't say anything. And even sometimes when you have a brethren that you can sit down and relate to, you're afraid of what he's going to think when it is done. So tips to get better mental health. We need to talk openly about mental health. Suffering in silence isn't safe or a healthy option for many in our lives. Sometimes you just suffer there and you don't know, and then one day the switch just flips and you're off. You have to check in. I like the fact that you have a men's group, and it's something that we could replicate across Jamaica, that men can come together and not just talk about the good things, but talk about men issues and figure out how you can fellowship with each other, especially from a religious and a Christian base, because you do need that support to recognize that you have to walk the walk as Jesus did, in order to be a man that is a leader and somebody who you can look up to. Not looking for perfection, but as close to that as possible, right? Check in with them, ask if they're feeling okay, especially, you notice some of the changes, looking for things that changes. They lost the job, they lost a loved one, business closed down, they are not able to go out because the car break down, things like those. You see somebody wearing the same shirt for the entire week, and it's not the usual pattern, something is off. You have to ask a question. Is the rent due? Sometimes you can't help with the tangibles, but just being there, able to help that is enough for some men. Just to know that somebody cares. We talk about changes in behavior and looking for support. Sometimes you just don't have to say anything, just listen. There's no judgment when you're listening. You don't offer a suggestion as a form of advice because it's based on your perspective. You have to help them to recognize what resources they have, use those resources to better themselves. Talking to a practitioner, health professional, find them that we are there. You can look a lot of places. All right, mental issues and mental health is just as important as physical health. So we're looking at things like eating healthy. Men don't like vegetable, and men in here love vegetable. They don't like to drink water. They don't like to eat fruits. The bread, the rice, the potato. You hear how much I'm telling you because I know I have a husband like that. Physical activity, you go to work and you spend the whole day laboring at work is not a targeted physical activity. So you have to get up and get fit. How you know if you walk up a flight of stairs and you can't catch your breath, you know that you're not physically healthy. So, and with physical health too, activity, remember, if you can't maintain, you're getting older, right? So there are going to be changes in your sexual libido. Don't make no sense to get no boom, no Viagra, no this, no that. Do the natural things, yes, but then you have to remember in your mind that I'm getting older, so you're going to slow it down. Slow it down and be more, what is the word I'm looking for now? Be more targeted in what you're doing.
Okay.
I'm getting it right?
Sure. Yes, you're right.
The Russian, the stamina thing is just nice to doing what you understand with Duke.
Yes,
right.
100%.
So you slow it down and you enjoy the ride and the process more. As then in your mind, you know you're slowing down. Because you don't want to have a heart attack either.
Is that a better way for them not to feel bad by saying that?
Say again?
Is that a better way for the males not to feel bad? Tell them to slow it down or say this, go easy?
No, it's not about feeling bad. Because at the end, we're talking about sex now. And if it is at the end of it, you're huffing and puffing and your heart going die and you're dying, it means that you're doing too much.
No.
At a certain age, you need to slow it down and you get more refined in what you're doing. So you're enjoying the process.
That's why the ladies have to understand, because
that's what I'm saying. The ladies need to understand
that their husband changes. We're getting older, so are you. So you're gonna expect that certain things that I could do when I'm 25, I can't do at 55.
Exactly.
So because things and time changes. So it's all about understanding and the perception. But you hit the nail on the head, because a lot of men try to do at 55 what they were doing at 25, and that's an issue too.
And then they go to the supplements that don't necessarily help. And with every supplement that they take, there's an adverse reaction or response to that. So they have to be careful in what they're doing. Right?
I believe that's quite understanding for persons who've been with that person for quite some time. But how about a person that just met that person and you're coming to it with that?
This is what they come in with, because at 55, if you're looking at somebody at 55 and expect them to perform at 25, then you are delusional, and then you're going to have issues.
Right.
Because if you look at him to say, okay, this is a 55-year-old man, I know that you're not going to be able to do certain things as a 25-year-old. Then as a woman, you have to appreciate that this is an older man, this is a more mature man. These are some of the expectations that I have. In the discussion, if you're just going into a situation, then that's something that you talk about.
Right.
Before you get into a situation where it's popping pills with when they mix it with boom and dragon and all these things, just fooling themselves.
Right.
You understand? Because then it's not a real reflection of who you are, because you can actually get it going at 55 and older, but you have to take it in stride at a certain pace. So you have to pace yourself. So you're going into a mature relationship. These are some of the discussions that you need to have.
Right.
If this is the person that you're going to go with. And if they are not discussing it as a woman, you bring it to the fore. It's not to embarrass or to shame. It's just to bring into your awareness what we're able to do, how we're going to go about this.
Right.
All right. So we're looking at stress reduction. If you're in a situation, sometimes, especially with a job, if you're in a career for a long time and it becomes stressful, sometimes God sends us little messages that tells us that if you're at your cap and you need to do something else. A lot of times we have hidden talents that that one talent that you want to hide under the bushel. You can start something that you enjoy and still monetize it and make money, and it is less stressful. I'm at the stage of my life now where I don't want to have somebody over me. I don't want somebody to tell me what to do, when to do, how to do, because I'm at that stage of my lifespan. So in terms of my career, I'm at a crossroads right now. I don't want anybody to tell me what to do. I want to do what I want to do in my own time. And I think that's one of the reasons I decided to open a business, so that I know there's an out for me, right? So sometimes you even your own career, if you're an accountant, if you are a policeman like Mr. Brown, you probably can start a security company or something in that field if that is what you want. But sometimes you have to reduce the stress, especially when it relates to career. Because listen, you see, when you drop dead from stress, the next day, the system is going to replace you without question. They may just have a little thing to say, oh, it was a good worker, she was a good worker, and we're going to miss her. But your space is going to be filled like that. So you have to know what is stressful to you when it is time. If you have given enough, there's no more to give, then you can give of your services somewhere else. And you will feel less stressed, and you're better able to manage your mental health. Social health is very important. I love the fact that you have a fellowship group that you can not only sit and sell cakes and make money and do projects, but you can fellowship and talk about things and joke about things. I hope you have games night and let down your hair kind of thing. Some place where you can come together with people that common cause, because Christianity is going to be the common cause, and then everything else around social health. Emotional health is very important, and of course you have to get your sleep. Sleep and sleep deprivation has a lot to do with health. There is always hope in God. There is always hope. No matter how hopeless it gets, as long as you have that strong foundation, you never let go, because you know that God is there and God is always going to be there. Living with mental health issues can feel overwhelming and isolating. As I said, for me, I was in this dark space that felt so comfortable that I didn't want to go. I didn't want to leave it. I just wanted to sit in that pity party for a minute. And that's what I actually did. Took time from work. I stopped going to the radio show. I did it virtually 1 and 2 times, and then I just never wanted to do anything. When it was in the early stages, I would bathe every other day because I know I felt like I had to bathe, that kind of thing. And then in your head that, oh, this is not a healthy place for you. You're not eating properly. You're not doing anything. You're not watching TV. You're not talking. I have dogs. I breed the Shih Tzu puppies. And Liz had a litter of 7. And it's the first litter that I've never interacted with. I just left her to nature. I didn't go there to look at the puppies. I didn't care. So it does happen, and it can happen because you're human, but you don't stay in that space. That's something I want you to understand. You have the pity party in the valley, but don't stay there for too long. Help is available, and you have to recognize that you can feel better. Now, the whole idea is finding your purpose. What is your skill? What are your talents? What are your abilities? What is unique? What gift did God bless you with? Remember, you don't have to have the 10 talents. You can have that one, but don't hide it. You have to maximize that one talent that you have. Some people can bake, some people can sew, some people can sing, they can write poetry. For that purpose, when I was going through a situation in my life, I wrote an anthology of poems, and I have the book published. I'm excited about it, but it's not about selling it either. It's just that I could do it, and I did. If you like to journal, you journal. So find the talent that God has blessed you with, not the one that you gave you so much pleasure and so much, you feel good when you engage in it. And maybe you can monetize it, because that's what the world is all about now. So if it is that you need to find a purpose, you have to figure out what your purpose is. What do you enjoy doing? When you have a day off or a vacation, what it is that you do? Is it that you go out and have fun? Do you go out by yourself? I found that, you know, 1 or 2 times I'll go have dinner by myself. I'll go and walk up and down in Old Trios by myself, just for you, like some me time, because you really need to get that me time with everybody that you're giving to and everybody's taking from you. You really need to get the me time to sit down and see, do I like who I see? You know what I mean? There's an exercise I want you to try. It can get very scary. When you're in the mirror, look at yourself in the mirror, not just the physical self, but look deep into yourself. A lot of people can't do it for more than 5 minutes because you get so afraid of what you're seeing. It took me a little while to actually appreciate the woman that I'm seeing in the mirror. And sometimes you're looking and you have to look away. It's like, it creeps you out when you start to look at who you are. But it's something that I wanted to try, and I'd just love to know how it works, because a lot of people can't do it. You start looking and you're so afraid of what you're seeing, but you do it more often, take a longer time until you start to appreciate all your faults, all the good things about you, everything about you, and then you start to love yourself a little bit more. All right, so if money is not a factor, what would your dream job be? So these are some of the things that you do to find your purpose. What kind of books would you read? What kind of movies? What kind of songs would you listen to? What gives you that get up and go energy, that positivity that you want? What breaks your heart? Because then remember, you have to balance everything. What problems and situations or injustices in the world upset you? Last night I was looking at some videos of the Turkey and Syria, where they had the earthquake.
Mhm.
And when you see the children and people coming out of the rubble and being buried for 3 days, and you're like, oh my goodness, I am so blessed here. And then I'm looking up and I said, I'm on the 2nd floor, so if this place fall down, and you start to go into that what if. But there are some things that when you see injustices, and if you can help, you help, you can make a difference. Those are some of the things that you look for. What makes you unhappy? What makes you sad? Because you have to find a balance in your life. What makes you feel alive? You know, what makes you feel free? What makes you feel like, you know, you're competent, you feel good about yourself. A lot of us don't remember what makes us feel good, because we're so busy taking care of the everyday life, the bills, the children, food. You have to take care of everything as you're forgetting to take care of yourself. That's something that we really, really, really need to do. Who are your heroes? What qualities they possess? And then I don't want to leave without looking at what's God's purpose for you. Why am I here? What does God want me to do? What am I supposed to do with the gifts that God has given me? You have to ask yourself these questions. And when you find your purpose, it's not about me, it's a lot of what can you do to help somebody else. Because as Christians, that's what we do. We find out what our strengths are, we share with somebody else, because in sharing, we still multiply what we have, right? Pretty much that's what fellowship is.
Yeah.
Right. What you love to do and what you're good at is part of your calling. So if you love to do something, if you love to fellowship, if you love to share, if you love to minister to people, do what makes you feel good and feel good about yourself. This scripture came to me when I was preparing this presentation. It says, God isn't going to call you to do something that you hate to do. And that's important. God loves us so much that if you're doing something and you're uncomfortable or you're stressed, that's not what God wants for you. It's out of fear of not being able to pay the bills, or out of fear of what society is going to say, or out of fear of what my parents are going to say, what my children are going to think. If you are uncomfortable so much that every morning you get up, you have to fight yourself to go to work. And every morning you have to go to the office and you put on a mask to smile because you don't like the people who are there. You don't like the systems that exist. You hate it so much. God did not put you in that space to go to work every day and in an environment that you're hating it. Does that make sense?
No.
For you are formed, for you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And if you have a healthy self-esteem, and if you have a healthy awareness of self, that you know that you're special and you know that you're unique and you know that you have a voice, because sometimes even as adults, we feel so pushed down that we feel that we can't express our voices because boss going to fire you or somebody going to put up a disciplinary action against you. I have reached the stage where at my life now, I am going to tell you what bothers me. And if you're going to fire me, okay, fine. My God is not going to fire me. So you have to use your voices with respect now, because we still have to maintain that kind of, protocol. But you see, foolishness, don't take it. Because God is not going to take the foolishness either. But we believe that we have to, because it's a boss and it's over our head and it's going to be disciplinary action. And we limit ourselves because we fear that we are not beautiful and wonderfully made, right? So God formed your inward parts, your heart, your mind, and your soul, and to allow your purpose to be something that you hated. He's not going to create you so beautiful and wonderful and then make you hate something that is you. Doesn't make sense, right? So once you found your purpose, what do you do with it? You have to share it. You have to give back to somebody else. So we have to become society where we have become help me, look at me, give me, praise me, the TikTok, everything that's about me and not about giving to the other person or sharing with our neighbors. We have to be our neighbor's keeper, remember? So the danger as Christians is that we get wrapped up in the society of the self. And the Bible in Philippians 2:3-7 says, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also the interests of others. Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant and being in the form of the likeness of man. I think this is powerful. Giving of yourself, it makes you feel, when you empty yourself, you're filled with so much. And it sounds weird when you empty out something, there's space for God to put more into you. All right. The thing is, as Christians, we do get tired, we do get weary, because if you keep helping somebody and doing the same thing over and over and over and over, it means that you're doing the same thing without getting a change. So you have to figure out another way. Ask God to give you that spirit of discernment so that you can find another way to help somebody else. If you can't, ask somebody else to help you, to help that person, because that's what we're here for, to help each other. Starting out on a new path is exciting, but in all things, that excitement fades from time to time, and we have to appreciate that because everything goes through a cycle. When negative words get thrown at your way, don't grow weary in your calling. People will tell you, oh, they might take advantage of you. Oh, you're doing it and no, you're not getting any praise. You're doing it and you're not getting any money. You are doing it not for money or for praise, but for the feeling that you get when you can extend and help somebody else. When doors are closed, I've heard this statement, sometimes God closes the door, you stand there banging your head on it. Why? If you turn around and look left or right or behind you, he's opened so many other doors because you're so focused on this one door. You keep banging on that one door. And God is a God that gives you choices, right? So if you look at this, that it happens for a reason. So if that door closed, just sit there banging on your head. Oh, I study guidance. Oh, I study guidance. Oh, I study psychology. Oops. Why is it you still hearing me?
Yes, we are now.
Okay. I've noticed came up that my internet is unstable. So there's sometimes the door closes. Just take it for what it is and move on to another door. Because God didn't want you to open that door. He closed the door. Everything happens for a season. It is Ephesians, Pastor. There's a scripture that speaks about everything, for everything there's a season.
Yes, Ecclesiastes.
Ecclesiastes. Yes. All right. So when you get tired of people, which will happen, don't faint. Keep going, press forward, and look towards the mark in the ceiling, as look to be as close to Christ-like as possible. It's foolhardy to think that because you're Christian, you don't like somebody, the spirit don't take. It's just part of being human. But you're not going to go out of your way to cause that person hurt or harm. It's just that it's just this thing, so we don't have to be hypocritical in all of this either, because we're not going to be saints. All right, so almost near to the end. Letting go is something that men don't do very well. You hold on to something, you hold on to an unhealthy relationship, you hold on to past grudges, you hold on to a lot of negative things. It's natural for us to hold on to the positive things too, but many like to hold on to a grudge. If you don't get your pound of flesh, you still hold that grudge forever and ever and ever until you can get the revenge from the person or exact your pound of justice. You can live your life angry, bitter, mad at somebody, or even guilty, not letting go of your own mistakes. Sometimes we make mistakes and we can't let go of those mistakes either, but you won't receive the good things that God has in store. I think the next slide is a video, and it just speaks to what happens in our lives. I just want to let me know if you're hearing it.
So many of us are walking around holding pain and frustration and hurts, and we're being aided by people who are hurt too. And so God says, hey, I want some good things to come to you because I'm a God of grace. And when he sends good things your way, you can't even catch them, because you're still holding on to everyone and everybody who hurt you. It's something where you have to get a little energy. You gotta cast. Oh, okay, I cast this. Oh, thank you, Lord. I cast them, but I ain't casting this one, because this is my Uncle Bill. And Uncle Bill exposed me to stuff that's messed me up to this day. I can't forgive him. But I'm free enough to at least catch a good thing. So now God brings good things my way. And I just praise the one good thing because I won't release the other things. And so I'm better than I used to be. And then God throws another blessing your way and you can't catch it. And this is what Paul is telling us right now. He said, if you release what's in your hands, then God can release what's in his hands. And oh, somebody needs to thank God right there. And if you don't release what's in your hand, he would be an irresponsible father to try to throw something else your way.
All right. Any thoughts on that video?
It's on point. I think it got to the point, and the message was clearly delivered. I like the prop that he used with the ball. It helps. They're so right. And as soon as it started playing and it said holding on to things, it brought me back to a time in my life when I have the typical Jamaican father. They're not there for their kids. And then after them and the lady so-called mash up them the business with the child. Yeah. So I'm a product of that. And he migrated. And I didn't see my father for 12 years. No, it's probably more than 12 years. But when I saw him again, I was 18 years old. And the last time I saw him, I believe I was 5. So yeah, it was about 12 or 13. And it caused a whole bunch of, I didn't even know that I had a lot of that stuff bottled up. Yeah. Because growing up, I tend to be strong and I pushed on. And his family lived close by. My grandmother, his mother, his sisters and stuff. So I used to visit them all the time, spend time with them and everything. So even though he wasn't in the picture, I used to see them because they were there and he was overseas. And due to circumstances that should have happened, because that's how I look at it now, I saw him again when I was 18, when he came back to Jamaica. And it brought a whole lot of things out. we got into it, and for about 10 years after that incident, more than 10 years, I didn't talk to him. I spoke to him for the first time in over 10 years last year when I was ready. And let me tell you, family always say, oh, move on, you know, it's in the past and stuff. And I always tell them that you can't tell me when to move on and when everything is good with me.
Yep.
And they always say you're battling stuff and everything. But I was free, and I knew I was, because I had gotten to the point where I knew I had forgiven him and everything, but I just wasn't ready to extend the olive branch as yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, and I move on. But it, in a nutshell, it's good when we're human, as you said, and we're gonna feel hurt, and we're gonna feel pain, but at the same point in time, we just try to accept and move on and do what's right, so that we're not holding on and blocking other blessings that are coming our way.
Indeed. And you know, when you released those feelings, it wasn't necessarily for your father, you know. It's for your
No,
healing.
it wasn't for him. It was for me.
It was for you. And when you embraced him with that forgiveness, you're able to feel at peace. And that's something that we all need. Finding that peace.
Yes.
All right. Oh, why am I not moving?
So many of us are walking around.
Okay. So you see what you said, to release, sometimes holding on, it causes more pain, does more damage than just letting it go. We have to let go of that job. We have to let go of that toxic relationship. I know as Christian, we don't speak about divorce, but in terms of the aspects of the relationships that need to be worked through, we have to let go of some of the things that we are holding on to, because it makes you feel good. It makes you feel justified that, yes, I'm holding on to this and I'm not letting it go because I am right and I'm always going to be right, and I need to make you feel guilty all the time. Those are some of the things that we have to find to let go. Especially in our Jamaican situation, I have found that there are a lot of men who were sexually abused as boys, and they hide it, and it becomes a part of that monster that eats them from inside out. And because of the stigma that is attached to that, the homophobic and the homophobia that is exists in our society, a lot of men are little boys hiding within the body of a man. So I'm finding a lot of that happening. It's very prevalent. It's something that we need to talk to our boys about, and even the girls, more so the girls, because when it comes down to sex and sexuality, we tend not to inform our boys as much, but we need to have that conversation with them as well. So that they don't hold on to all this negative energy that eats at you and eats away at you and prevents you from, once you release, as the video was showing, you are able to receive blessings that, you know, our God is able to throw at you. Because if your arms are filled with stuff, there's no space. So you have to release and let God fill it. Let go and let God do his work. Sometimes you wonder about the blessings are going to come, and you say, oh, if I had done this so long ago, this is what is possible. So we don't see what, because we don't have enough faith. And that's something that I have to work on for myself. I don't like to think that I fear movement or fear changes, but it's just that the faith isn't, I don't have enough faith. And that's something I'm working on, as I said, to trust that God will take me where he needs me to go. Because every time I have to say to myself, and when I pray, I say, not my will, but thy will be done. Because sometimes what we want is not necessarily what is good for us, you know? And sometimes it's difficult to hear what God wants for us if we're just silent enough and listen and look for the signs, because the signs do come, but we're not paying attention. We're so focused on self, we're not focusing on God for him to guide us to where we need to go. And that's something that our men need to do, and women too. It's something that I have to, I'm working on. So we have to learn to let go. This is one of my favorite verses, Jeremiah 29, verse 11. It says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." So it doesn't matter what is going on. Sometimes the flesh is weak and the body is weak, but you have to remember that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And each of us is unique, and each of us has a purpose. So if you believe that there's a purpose for you and you believe that God is going to prosper you, sometimes you get the test because you have to share the testimony at the end of the test. Somebody always said to me that when you're doing a test, the master, the teacher is always silent. Sometimes people say, "Boy, what is happening? Where is God in all of this?" But you have to go through, because you have to go through that process to be stronger. Sometimes the process that you go through, it needs to bring us closer to God. And we miss that. Sometimes, people end up going to other places. You go to the tarot card reader, you go to the Obeah man, you go to the sister who went to tell her that them see this and them see that. But we forget that we have to go to Nicity. My mother always spoke about going to Nicity and trusting that God is going to take you through it, no matter what it is, because God is not going to give you more than you can bear. And even when you feel like this is so much and it is too much, never forget the story about the footprints in the sand, because I use those analogies all the time. I'm not walking, leaving these prints. God is carrying me through, because some of the things that you go through in your life, when you look back, it wasn't you. It wasn't just you alone, because we're not that strong. We're not strong enough for all of what we've been through. And you look back and you say, "I've been through that." So anything else that is coming your way, you can go through it with God, and that's it. Pretty much trusting and, hoping and keeping faith. And a lot of times you have to be patient too. So that's my presentation. Any questions?
Okay, Hilton, I have a question.
Okay.
How can you help a 5-year-old whose parents constantly fight in front of them? They're having problems in school and everything else. How do you help that child?
Well, you have to start at the source. Usually you have to find out what is causing the fight, what is the issue, what is the source of contentment. You have to get both parents to a place where they understand the impact it is having on the child. That's the first thing, because usually parents love the child regardless of what is happening between them. So the common love would be for the child. So if you can share with the parents that this is affecting the child and how it is affecting the child, then they will see that they need to fight quieter, or they go outside, or they find other places to fight, or other ways to fight than to involve the child.
So how would that affect that child mentally?
Because the environment, if a child is very sensitive, so they know when everybody is happy and when everybody is sad. So you're forming those images, and in the formative years of their life, they know that they're upset, they know that they're quarreling, especially if it is physical, they can see that somebody is hurting. And sometimes children internalize it as, "I am the reason for all of what is happening." So that is a possibility as well. So parents usually have to be responsible enough. Even if they're having challenges, they have to figure out a way how to deal with it without the child being aware that something is off. It might be that they need to take some physical space and time away. Quite possibly they need to have some counselor or mediator helping them through the challenges that they have. So the first thing is to identify what is the source of contention. That's one of the things. It's a multifaceted kind of approach that you have to take. They have to just stop recognizing that this is affecting the child. It's not healthy for the child to grow up in that environment. Because remember, it is trauma, it is abuse. Because even if it is not happening to that child directly, It's a spin-off, so they will think that, oh, I am the reason for it, because children tend to take on responsibility for things that are happening, especially if it's not explained to them.
Yes.
You know, it is okay to say to a child, mommy and daddy are having a disagreement. We don't agree on certain things, and we're going to try to work at it. We love each other. So when we get upset, it's not that we don't love each other, but we're going to figure it out. And then you have to find another way to figure the issues out.
Yes.
And it might mean like separation in terms of you can't have two parents that are fire. You have
Right.
to have one who is willing to step back and take responsibility to say, oh, you're so upset. No, I can't talk to you right now. You know? So you have to find that healthy balance. It's good for a child to see, and it might sound weird to see that there is a conflict and how you deal with the conflict. Because you can be upset and you don't have to be cursing bad words, and you don't have to be cussing loud, and you don't have to be disrespectful and use, the derogatory terms, because you can express yourself in different ways. And that's something that we need to learn how to do as humans, to express ourselves in ways, show that you're upset, but it doesn't disrespect, because the words sometimes that you say, it sometimes people say better you hit me with something than you say words, because those words form an imprint on your brain. And when you in quiet time, you reflect on those things, and it brings up emotions and feelings and negative emotions, especially if you don't process it well.
Yes, true.
Okay.
I have a question, Dr. Hilton. So I know a particular person, he has not been formally diagnosed because the family, I guess, didn't want to go through the process. They said that he has been refusing going to see someone for treatment and stuff. But the situation is, he was here living in the US, has a family, has 2 kids, everything was going well, and just, it's like something snapped. And just weird behaviors. He would post some stuff online saying that he's the owner and founder of like Pepsi, things like that. And then he goes out into, there was this event that happened, and he went and posed himself as some president of this company, this big company, and things like that nature. And so it became, I think, a burden for the family here, because of course he left, his wife family tried with him, to my understanding, to get him help, but I guess he didn't want to. So they sent him to his mom and sisters in a different state, and he was there. And I guess they got tired of it. So they shipped him to Jamaica, to the grandparents. I'm telling you about a 37-year-old male who I guess nobody doesn't want to deal with. What are your thoughts on getting, because I asked the situation, I asked another friend, I was like, so why wasn't a medical facility called to come and take him from the home then and try to seek him help and stuff? And they said that they did. However, unless he decides to come with them, they can't do anything, because he's not an imminent threat. He's not like trying to kill them or anything of that nature. That's the only time they could try to get him help without him agreeing. And of course, he's not agreeing. And I'm sure grandparents who are much older know he's been here for years, and now back in Jamaica on them, it's going to be a tough situation. What are the rules in Jamaica where he can get medical help without him admitting, but getting like the signs are there? So is there anything in place that you guys can do to help?
All right. So pretty much what happens across the world, if the person is an adult, they have to give consent for treatment. So you can't force an adult to take treatment. Even when they are at that stage where you're seeing them doing things out of the norm, unless they hurt somebody or an imminent threat to themselves, it's pretty much somebody trying to convince him that he needs to get better. Now, if it is that he is breaking the law, you can call the police or they can come. One other option is to have, they have the medical practitioners, the mental health practitioners at the hospitals.
Yes.
Each hospital, I think they have those kind of persons. If you make some kind of association with one or two of them and ask them if they can help. Because I've seen cases in my sister's case, because you know that's how Jamaica is. You know somebody who knows somebody, then you can put them in a home. I had to put my sister in a home for a month because it was that bad. And I had to go through a private doctor to get a referral so that I could get her into a home. And sadly, the mental institutions and the homes that we have in Jamaica, they are so inadequate. They don't have the proper resources. They don't have the proper personnel. So the ones that you can find are very expensive. So if it is that you can, you know, take him to they can take him to a private practitioner, psychiatrist, because that sounds like he had a mental break, and maybe medication is the only way that can help him to come back to some sense of normalcy, and then they can do a treatment plan like counseling or help him to figure out what resources he has and where he needs to be. So it can be a private practitioner. The hospitals, I know that they usually, like if somebody is breaking the rule, and Mr. Brown can attest to that, if it's a mental ill person and destroying property, or they can call the police to help, but the police will not go unless the mental health practitioners are there.
Because I know someone else, similar situation, and that's how they have to get him the other day. Not the same person I referred to before, but this is my sibling's family member, and he drew a knife on his mom and the stepfather, and one of them all tumbled down running away from him. So the police were called and stuff, and they got him the shot that he's good. But this person I'm talking about, the professional and engineering degree, things like that, someone I went to high school with, and I know from high school all the way up, a smart person and everything. And it's just a whole 360 with how he acts, everything. And I was saying in the case that he's married, I thought at least the wife could give some sort of consent to try to get assistance, but I guess that's not the case.
I learned that if it is that the person is an adult, except that they're going to hurt somebody else, that's the extreme case when the system jumps in. Unless they can convince him that he needs help and something is wrong or something is different. And it's difficult sometimes, especially when you're in that state, for them to recognize that something is wrong or something is off. Or if you could tell him that he could do it for his children or do it for his wife or somebody who he favors. Because here, we don't take mental health as seriously as they do it overseas, where they have the resources. So hopefully it doesn't hurt or harm anybody before he can get help. So it's like sometimes there are times when our family had to trick our sister into taking the medication because she thinks that nothing is wrong with her. But that is in the state of the mind. Sometimes the people who are around who are of sound mind, they have to make some tough decisions too.
Yes.
Physically take him to a private practitioner. And sometimes these private doctors and psychiatrists don't want to treat because then they're liable for lawsuits. By consent, then they're not supposed to do that. So it's a vicious cycle that we live in, and before you get to that point, because sometimes it can be chemical imbalance, it can be something that is wrong with the makeup of the brain, or something triggered some issue or trauma or something that caused him to as you say, snap. And I noticed that you said he's an engineer and he's smart. He's human first. Engineering is training. You understand? So we have to recognize that we're all humans first, and that there's just that thin line between sanity and insanity.
Yes.
So we have to take care of our mental state before it gets to that point where you have a breakdown, and then you have to do restructuring.
Yeah. It's true.